So you're interested in making a hardcore Diablo 4 character, and you're trying to find some tips online to increase the probability of your survival. Now, the tips that I'm going to be talking about are basically for all the classes in the game. It's not just for the Necromancer, which is what I currently play, because there are game mechanics that are built into Diablo 4 to help hardcore players, especially in encounters that they would otherwise get killed right away. So with that being said, let's talk about the first tip I have for you guys, which are called Scrolls of Escape. Now, these will start to drop rarely from events and inside dungeons and elite monsters whenever you reach level 20. Now, these scrolls are a one-time use, but it's also an immediate instant teleport back to a safe location where you won't die. Now, the cool thing about the scroll is you can actually put it on your action wheel, which is by pressing E and selecting one of the actions, and then you can also keybind the action wheel onto your mouse or keyboard. So all you got to do is press a single key or button and you immediately teleport to safety. Now, these scrolls are very rare and they're a luxury, so make sure that you don't waste them on situations that are not dangerous just for the sake of getting back to town a few seconds faster. My second tip for brand new hardcore characters is you shouldn't be doing too many dungeons before level 20 because you might run into the Butcher. He's a rare mechanic and he can be in pretty much any dungeon, and you don't really know if he's going to be lurking around the corner and grab you. Now, you can kill the Butcher before level 20, but it's likely that you won't have enough health or damage output to do it efficiently without putting your character at significant risk. So for that reason, I actually didn't really do dungeons until I had access to at least one scroll. So then if I did run into him, I had an oh shit button and I was ready to get out of the area, because if you try to run from the Butcher, he will charge or chain you and it will stun you in place. So you can't really run away from him. The best way to fight him is by staying at a bit of a medium distance. So not right close to him where he headbutts you, but not far enough away where he pulls you in with the chain. If you're in a situation where you have to defeat the Butcher and you're before level 20, try to find a pillar or an area that you can actually kite the Butcher around in a circle. That's going to give you the opportunity to maintain that medium distance and apply damage without him actually being able to hit you very often. The trick for the Butcher is to not really run away from him, because he can't really stun you or do anything if you're damaging him at that medium range. It's best to avoid the Butcher before you get a scroll completely, but if you do run into him, that's the way to do it. Tip number 3 is the Elixir of Death. So whenever you actually create a hardcore character, you will have this recipe drop. It's pretty common. It's likely you'll get it within the first couple of levels, and in my case, the recipe just wouldn't stop dropping for me. Whenever you take this to the alchemist, it will allow you to craft this elixir. I've only been able to craft 2 of these elixirs so far on my journey to level 52, so the materials can be a little bit rare in the early game, especially the Angel's Breath. These spawn outside and they're kind of just rare flowers that you happen to find whenever you're traveling through, or you get them from the herb boxes. And I just kept an eye on the reagents that were required to craft it as I was leveling through the game. And whenever I felt like I was close, I went out of my way to try to find the enemies that would drop what I need, kill them, and craft one of them and just have it on standby, because I didn't know the boss fights going into the game. I was going in completely blind. So it was always just nice to have a little insurance on some of those really difficult fights that I was unsure about. The mechanics are pretty simple. Whenever you take damage that would otherwise kill you, you gain 2 seconds of immunity, and this can only be triggered once every 5 minutes under the elixir's effect. This is going to give you more than enough time to use the Scroll of Escape or an ability that grants immunity to try to leave the area and survive, which is the ultimate goal of hardcore. Tip number 4 is about the world tiers. Now, there's multiple different world tiers similar to Diablo 3, but a bit different this time. Whenever you create a brand new character, though, you will have the ability to choose between World Tier 1 and World Tier 2. World Tier 1 is just basic Diablo 4. You get normal drops, normal gold, and normal experience rates. It's pretty straightforward. World Tier 2, though, gives you 20% additional experience and 20% additional gold, but does not give you better loot drops. In fact, the enemies become far more difficult and increases the probability of you getting one-shot or killed very easily, especially before level 20, before you get your Scrolls of Escape. I've done a few tests, and players that are far smarter than me with the numbers have also done their tests and concluded that it is actually slower to level in World Tier 2 and more dangerous without actually gaining pretty much anything in terms of loot rarity. So in my opinion, I would not even go to World Tier 2 until you're ready to do your capstone dungeon, and that is after the main story and closer to level 50 in the game. I would do Tier 2 before then just to see if your build is capable enough of handling those enemies and start testing the waters on how you can fight stronger enemies. But for doing dungeons, leveling up, and getting your gear before World Tier 3, it isn't worth it at all. So stay in World Tier 1. It's fine. You're not going to bruise your ego. It is much more efficient and better to do so. Now, once you unlock World Tier 3, then there are benefits to be playing at the higher difficulty levels with better loot drops, unique drops, nightmare dungeons with like these items that can apply affixes to create better monsters to give you better loot, 100% increased experience rates, 15% more gold, and unfortunately, the monsters are automatically going to eat away at your resists. 20% of your resists are ignored. The minimum level of the enemies in World Tier 3 are level 53, and the enemies do a substantial amount of increased damage and have way more HP. If you're not ready for World Tier 3, it's much better to just keep doing dungeons in World Tier 1 or 2 until you increase your survivability, get better gear, so you don't just get one-tapped right away. Don't be rushing into a situation that's going to get you killed. Now let's talk about tip number 5, which is immunity skills. Every single class in Diablo 4 has a skill that grants player immunity. I play a necromancer, so we only get one ability, and it's called Blood Mist. It's a pretty bad ability all around if I'm not a blood necromancer, but it's required for hardcore because if I get stunned or I'm put in a situation where I would otherwise die, I get feared into a corpse explosion, all that kind of stuff, I can press Blood Mist and it grants me immunity for 4 seconds, which I can use to reposition myself in a fight, which I do all the time, especially in boss fights, or it gives me 4 full seconds to choose to teleport and escape from the area with the Scroll of Escape. Unfortunately, it takes up an ability space on your bar, so you're going to be doing less damage or potentially have less crowd control unless it's actually good for your class and your build, which is awesome. But for me, Blood Mist is just kind of a bad ability that doesn't really do much because I'm not a blood necromancer. But it's required. It is the most important tool to get you out of situations that you will certainly die if you don't have an Elixir of Death, if you are stunned and you can't use your scroll, you know what I mean? Like, you need something to get out of stuns, fears, and CC. So mine's Blood Mist. Find out which one you have for your class and choose it. Trust me, the damage loss or whatever you're losing is not going to be worth the ability to make yourself immune for 4 seconds or potentially more depending on your class. Tip number 6 is defensive aspects. Now, every now and again, you're going to be getting legendary items that have aspects attached to them. Not all the aspects that are in the game can be acquired by completing dungeons, but a lot of them can be. For example, there is a great aspect that will grant you temporary immunity inside of a bubble shield whenever you take damage that injures your character. This is also a great way to stay alive and cast Scroll of Escape. There are aspects that will give you movement speed whenever you critically strike an enemy. There are aspects that are going to give you health whenever you're nearby enemies. There are aspects that are going to give you fortify, drop blood orbs, grant you barriers. And these are going to bolster your defense, increase your HP, and prevent attacks that would otherwise kill you with immunity bubbles, giving you time to use Scroll of Escape yet again, which is an essential tool to keep yourself alive in situations you would otherwise die, which I've already been talking about for like the last 9 minutes, but you get the idea. You don't have to go crazy with the defensive aspects, certainly if it fits your playstyle, if you're doing some sort of tanky build, but there's certainly something to be said about good offense is the best defense. The faster you kill your enemies, the less likely they'll be able to kill you. So again, don't go crazy with it unless that's the build that you're going for, which is more power to you, but at least have one that's dedicated to increase the utility belt of survival tools that you have to get yourself out of death scenarios. Tip number 7 is more of a general reminder to go back to the Alchemist every now and again and check to make sure that you can upgrade your healing potions, and then also craft a couple elixirs that might be beneficial to increase your critical strike or your dodge chance, or well, just use the elixirs whenever you feel like you're going into a boss that might be fire related or poison or lightning, because that also gives you 5% additional experience for just using a elixir, which is kind of nice. Also, a reminder that whenever you have certain renown in different areas, you increase the number of healing potions that you have available to you. So that's just going to give you more opportunities to heal up during a boss fight, which is obviously a good thing. Another quick tip is the Lilith statues. These are all around the map. There are maps online that can show you the locations if you want to get spoiled, but these are going to give you base stats across all of your hardcore characters. So if you have a main account that is capable of going to all the zones, you should spend a little bit of time going and collecting these statues, because whenever you make a brand new character, it's going to make their life a lot easier in the early game and give them more powerful. It's not as powerful in the later stage, but I guess every stat makes the difference, so you can be the judge. But just be aware, grabbing those on hardcore is separate than standard. So if you already did on standard, those stats don't cross over to hardcore, so you need to do it on your established hardcore character. Another quick tip is the stash. Whenever you actually die on your hardcore character, everything that's in the stash and your money gets passed on to the next hardcore account whenever you choose to use it. So make sure that you are storing items, storing scrolls of escape, storing anything that you might want to keep whenever you are going to be making a brand new character. That might also be rares or legendaries with different aspects that you might want to use on different characters. So keep that in mind. You do keep the stash, you just don't keep anything that's on your character. And the last quick tip to end the video would be about your upgrades. I would only upgrade to a certain point where you're not utilizing the most expensive and rare materials. I would save those for items that you really care about, but I would spend time upgrading and customizing your gear at the blacksmith, at the jewelers, at the aspect manager, whatever, I forget the name of the person, the Oculus, I think. Yeah, definitely be doing that on a regular basis. Keep your items upgraded. Make sure that you're putting in different sockets, especially like diamonds on your jewelry that give you a resists. Emeralds in your weapons, that's going to be increasing vulnerability damage, and all sorts of stuff like that. So make sure that you are going and upgrading that stuff. But like I said, I wouldn't upgrade items that you think you're going to be replacing soon all the way, because those require resources that are salvaged from legendary equipment. So yeah, I'm usually like a 3 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5 or a 3 out of 4 upgrader, but be sure to be going back every now and again and getting those upgrades. It's not that hard and it's not that expensive. Like if you run out of money, just sell the next batch of rares instead of salvaging them, and you'll probably have like a couple 100,000 gold to do everything that you need to do. With all that being said, guys, those are some tips that are certainly going to be helping brand new Diablo 4 hardcore players survive into the early game. Beyond level 50, that's kind of on you. You have to maintain that gear, you have to manage risk taking, and you have to make sure that you pop those immunities to escape those situations that would otherwise one-shot you. And the sad reality is, you will lose characters, including myself. It's going to happen, and when that does, that's going to suck. But at least that you know that you've tried your best, maybe, I don't know, or got unlucky with a server disconnect. But let me know how your progress goes in the comment section below. You can even tweet me some of your character profiles. I'd love to see it. And we have an in-game clan called Deadly Nation. You can apply. I think we're full right now, but we're probably going to be adding more people as time goes on. I also will be having drops starting January 6th, and I am in the Support a Streamer program for Diablo 4. So I'd love to see you in some of the streams. A link to that will be included in the description box below, twitch.tv/DeadlySlob. Subscribe here for more videos, and I will catch you all in the next one. And of course, good luck on your hardcore characters.